welcome. Nice to have you with us on a busy afternoon as we get you home here on a snowy day in frozen America. Good to have you with us with Eddie Erickson and Billy Z, and of course Colin Schmeling, yours truly. Christopher Russo beginning a broadcast day here on Mad Dog Unleashed as we chat to you about what's cooking as far as the world of sports is concerned. 888 Mad Dog 6 is your two-way sports talk telephone number as we chat to you about what is happening. I know Steve spent a lot of time today on the Central Florida thing. I might get into that myself. Good job by Steve trying to find a topic to get him home through a snowy day. We got the NFL, of course, the 4 games for the weekend. We know the Georgia-Alabama game is on, the Monday night in Atlanta. It'll be interesting to see if that generates a lot of buzz. First off, it's a tricky day to have the championship game anyway. Everybody's focused on the 4 NFL wildcard games. Yet the matchups aren't great, but everybody's going to watch those 4 games, especially if they're cooped up, and then they're going to, maybe by Monday late afternoon, they'll start thinking about Alabama. So, I mean, it almost loses in certain parts of the country. It won't, but in the vast majority of the America, it's almost like you can't think about Georgia, Alabama right now. When I got 4 other games in the same sport, same sport that are more important to concern myself with than a Georgia-Alabama game. So we have that today. Hall of Famers in a couple of weeks. We got that today at 888 Mad Dog 6. That's your two-way sports talk telephone number as we talk to you about what's going on as far as the Hall of Fame is concerned. Listen, I'll delve in for a minute. If Central Florida, what is the big deal? It's a small school in Orlando. I did games for Central Florida back in the early 80s when they were just trying to become a quote-unquote powerhouse, where they were trying to become a known entity in a tricky state. I went all over the country with that team, the Southeast, with Lou Saban was their head coach, and then later on, Gene McDowell. I mean, I spent a lot of time with that team on team planes, on road trips, on this, on that, and, I always thought that they were, fighting up a tough hill and fighting against time, trying to establish themselves in a state that had 1 million Division I schools. And with Florida State, Georgia's not too far away. Throw in University of Miami, and I just thought that they were really in a tricky spot. And good for them. They have figured out a way, Central Florida, to, find their niche, to get into a conference, play Division I, build a stadium. They've always had plenty of money, and they did not have a stadium back 20, 30 years ago. They played in the Tangerine Bowl, that big edifice that houses the Citrus Bowl, which they have redone 1 million times. From a facility standpoint, and they built the stadium. I'm assuming that stadium's on campus. I don't know where that stadium is, but they built that small little stadium, which is sort of an oval, 35,000. They have plenty of money there. There's a lot of money in Orlando and at University of Central Florida, and they built a stadium and they found their deal, and they've produced some NFL players, and they have done everybody from Culpepper right on down. They've done a nice job, and they have become a factor, and they had a nice year, and they took advantage, obviously, of a lousy conference. Their coach is a good coach, and they beat an Auburn team that was probably a little spent, a little burned out, but they won the game fair and square on Monday afternoon. The game meant a lot more to Central Florida than it did to Auburn, and I think that's a major factor. I think Central Florida was dying to go out there and show that they belonged, throwing the idea that Frost was allowed to coach the team. And, Central Florida takes credit in grooming these coaches. Frost now at Nebraska, so I think they enjoyed that. And they gave Frost sort of a going-away present by allowing he and his staff to coach the ball club. So I think there was that. I think everybody wanted to send him off on a merry way. They had already brought in Heupel. So, I mean, I think from a stand, they had a lot going for them on Monday. They had a lot going for them. Karma, Auburn had used a lot of energy playing those last couple of regular season games. The Georgia game took a lot out of them. They probably felt that they were as good as Alabama and Georgia. I mean, they were 2-1 against them in the course of the year, and then they had to play little old Central Florida. I mean, they play them 10 more times. Auburn would win 8 of the 10. But that day, Central Florida was a good team. I guess my point is, if Central Florida, with Frost on his way to Nebraska, if they want to go out there and they want to, make a big deal about they're the only nation's only undefeated team and 13-0 and throw a little parade and wear the T-shirts and, puff up their chest and, get talked about on, national programs, what the heck? Why not? Who cares? I mean, I don't think anybody is that wrapped up in it one way or the other. I think they care about it on that little campus, which, by the way, is a long way from Orlando. By the way, it's got 25 minutes. It's in the middle of nowhere. You're talking about a guy who did a lot of games there. It's in the middle of nowhere, and if they want to get revved up and they want to, put a little name on it, put a little star next to their name, and they, want to put a little "Look at Us" T-shirt out and have a little parade around campus, and it's a commuter school. But if they want to do that, let them do it. I don't have any problem with that. I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think anybody cares. I think Steve cared today. He sat there, looked at a dead board. He said, geez, I don't care about Kyrie Irving and the Cavaliers against the Celtics. I can't get wrapped up in the NFL yet. I'll wait till that on Friday. I'm not going to break down the Winter Cup. I'm not going to break down the Winter Classic in the NHL. I'm not talking about the Australian Open. I'm not going to break down Justin Thomas at the golf in Hawaii. I'm limited to what I'm going to do. So listen, let's have fun with UCF, and if we're lucky, we'll figure out a way to get a coach. And here comes Tommy Bowden. So from that standpoint, it's smart. It was good talk radio from Steve, and I give him credit there, but I just don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, I should thank him for leaving me a little something on my tableau where give me something to talk about. I just don't know. Well, who cares? I mean, I let UCF, nobody in America outside of that little fortress, outside, 17, whatever the streets, I think it's 1790, I forget. I used to know, it was at 1792, outside that road that leads from the airport to downtown or to the outskirts. Nobody cares what UCF's doing. Nobody cares. It was a great performance. I didn't even know they had a kid who didn't have a hand who was this good. Griffin. I wasn't even aware of that. But if UCF today and their president and everybody else and their associate AD, they all want to go nuts, go ahead. I don't see what the big issue is, and I don't think anybody really cares. I know the New York Times wrote about it today, and they did a big story about it. Mark Tracy did a nice job with it. So, I understand that, but I don't know if it's... Well, it must be worth something, as I just opened up 9 lines with it, and I got nothing to do myself, so maybe there is something to it. But it's not a big deal to me. The game on Monday night, that's a big deal. Now, that game I'll be wrapped up in. I think we all will. I think Alabama going into that game has to be considered a solid favorite. I think Georgia, we'll talk to Gary D later, I think Georgia, playing that emotional double overtime game, the great comeback on the road in the Rose Bowl, a place they had never played before, against an opponent they had never played before, beating Oklahoma, then coming all the way back to Athens, and then 4 or 5 days later playing in that championship game. I think that's going to take a lot out of them, and I wonder what's going to be left in the gas tank. I know it's a championship game, but I wonder what is going to be left in the gas tank. Alabama treated the Clemson game almost as a business trip. They played one less regular season game than Georgia did. I think that's an advantage. New Orleans back to Tuscaloosa is 10 minutes. Obviously, Pasadena to Athens isn't. I just think from a standpoint of the actual preparation of the game, Alabama's been down this path a million times. They are born to play in these kind of ball games. They know what it's like to play the extra week. They know what it's like to play January 8th. The coach knows it. Kirby Smart knows it too, but his team doesn't. The culture of Georgia doesn't, and Alabama does. Alabama looked to be almost they were revved up, raring to go against Clemson. They had a little something to prove to Clemson after last year in Watson, and they proved it. And I think Alabama is not going to lose 2 championship games in a row. I think that's a very, very hard game for Georgia. And I think Georgia's got weapons, and they can run the ball. Quarterbacks played really well. They obviously have that good little receiver. They have a pretty well-balanced team. They're not a great defense, but it's a solid defense. They obviously did a good job against Auburn, splitting the 2 games. But I still think, until proven otherwise, Alabama is still the cream of the crop in the SEC, and still the cream of the crop in college football. And I do believe that you'd have to think that Saban has the advantage over Kirby Smart in this kind of game. You can make the argument that Smart knows what it takes, that he knows the Alabama defense backwards and forwards, which will help his offense. You can make that case, but I don't know. It's a hard game for Georgia to win here, and I'm actually surprised the spread's only 4. That's the championship game. What UCF did is not, but I understand UCF wanting to go out there and puff their chest. Keep in mind one thing on the Monday game. They deserved to win, and they were the better team that day. If they did play 10 times, Auburn won 8 of the 10. Auburn went through a rigorous regular season. They played Georgia twice. They played Alabama, LSU. I mean, they played some big-time teams. Clemson. I mean, think about it. They played 3 of the teams in the Final Four 4 times. Think about that for a minute. They played 3 of the teams in the Final Four in the NCAA in 2017. They played at Clemson, Georgia twice, and Alabama. Now, they played 2 of the games at home, and the other game on a neutral site, other game on the road. But they played those teams 4 times, and that has a wear and tear effect. And that, I think, kind of wore them out a little bit. I think they're a little flat against, except for that third quarter outburst, a little flat. But if today, UCF, which was an Armageddon game for them, if they want to sit there and have a little parade in front of 2,000 people on the, on the eastern end of Orlando, let them do it. What's the big deal? We continue. We'll get your calls in. 888 Mad Dog 6. I see the NFL ratings are down by 10% in 2017. We can get to that as well as we continue along on Mad Dog Unleashed on a frozen day in the Northeast. Come on back.